So here I am on the lovely road in my neighbourhood, and you can see how close the houses are. Lovely houses, lovely road. Absolutely adore living in a cul-de-sac. This isn't my road, but I do adore living in cul-de-sacs. And even though this has a bicycle path, wow, something like nearly 80 or 90,000 bikes use the bicycle path a year. And I was really hoping they'd get to 100,000, but they didn't hit it. So, I walked that bicycle path during the winter. Marley during the summer, bicycle path during the winter. Why? Because Marley closed. But talking about closed, and you can see the difference between the houses. And so this video is about neighbours. We talk about every single stakeholder in the whole construction process, bar one, the next door neighbours. And I got a email from, seemed like a lovely woman, and turned out that she was more than that, an absolutely incredible woman. And she asked me to give her a hand, and I checked the paperwork, and I actually said, I'm not quite sure I'm your guy. And she said, why not? And I said, you know why not, and two of us laughed and had a conversation. She was actually moving into my road, and sure enough, we worked together, which was great fun, and helped her with some paperwork. And then the next thing, actually got to meet her, and she then there was a follow-up email asking me would I do a little bit more, and I said I'd have to charge her for travel money. I think she lives about 20 yards away from me, so all good, but that's not necessarily the norm. It can be brilliant. It can also be next door neighbours calling you weekends, next door neighbours getting very marginalised. I did a job up in Ashburn years and years ago when I was a builder, and I went down to the police station, and I said I'd like to report an incident, and they said okay, and I said who's involved, and said me, and said what's the other party, and I said two neighbours, and said okay, what happened? And said nothing, but it's going to kick off, and I'm going to be in the middle. And the guy asked me where they were, and I told him, and he said, no, not those gobshites. And I said, yeah. And there was, they had a party line that was non-defined, and they were both claiming both. And I wouldn't mind, there was about 8 or 9 metres between them. Didn't matter. So they became entrenched, and I just knew as the contractor, which I wasn't that time, I was going to be caught in the crossfire. And next thing, I rang up Health and Safety Department, and I said there's going to be a complaint against me. And they said, where are you? And I told them where. And they said, what do you mean a complaint? And I said, it's coming. And I said, it's personalised because of the conflict. Sure enough, somebody had to come out, and they were laughing at me and told me to move a ladder this way and put in. So they actually gave me, I don't know, maybe half an hour's worth of work to stabilise a scaffolding. But I was able to preempt it. But sometimes you can't preempt it. And the easiest thing in the world to do is to call in. Even if you're the builder, even if there's hostility between the two homeowners, one, you're doing the job, next door neighbours, and even call up 1 or 2 doors up. I was doing the job, and I turned to the painting contractor who was spraying out, and I said, you got next door neighbours pat and lawnway and patio covered. I said, just do me a favour, please do me a favour, and go up and cover up your man's bicycle or motorbike 2 houses up. Nah, Rory, not going to happen. Sure enough, the end of the day came. I got him to cover everything up, and we went up 2 houses up, and the plastic over the motorbike was absolutely obliterated in paint. 2 minutes later, took the plastic off, not a drop on the motorbike, and it would have happened the other way. You need eyes in the back of your head when it comes to Neighbours. That's just the reality. Go in, and I saw a job, and next door Neighbours had a great job, and they built kind of like a little shed, and they never pebble dashed the back of the house on the other neighbour's side, and people don't see it. I was in my own next door Neighbours, and I saw my extension, went, ooh, that's embarrassing. They got a huge amount of sun on that elevation, and it was weathering, and I sent somebody in to fix it. 2-3 minutes knocking in, giving details, taking responsibility can save a huge amount. So I was doing a job out in Connolly for a client, and we sat down. Very, very tough ass man, lovely, sweet, kind man, treated me like a son, but he was a tough ass. But so once again, when I was a builder, you think you learn all the lessons. And so the contract was done, and he said, timeline. I said, I don't know. Look, most of it's refurb. It's only a small little extension. We've got the checkout from the engineer. It can carry the load. We don't need to do any underpinning or structural work, so it's not going to take long. And he said, how long? And I said, I don't know, 6 months, maybe 8 max. And he said, you have 18 months. And if you spend 1 day less, I'm going to take 5% off the overall contract. Just thought, wow, what's going on here? And he said, deadly, do we have a deal? So I thought, okay. So I said, why? My contract was 18 months instead of 6 months. Why? Because his next door neighbour, and we're out in Connolly, right in one of the, probably the wealthiest neighbourhood in Ireland, I think it's fair to say. And beside him was a very, well, look, beside everybody in Connolly is a very famous person, so that's utterly irrelevant. And next door neighbour mightn't have been as famous, but definitely wealthy. And the next door neighbour had started construction work and never knocked in. Was only new in the neighbourhood, went and got a huge amount of construction work done, and never once knocked in, never once said hello, never once engaged. And my client felt utterly obliterated by this. Utterly and completely obliterated by this. And that's why. So the deal was, my project with him had to go 18 months. Madness. But I'm only the instrument. So we did all the Kango work. We did everything. He came back and he saw the work and he said, it's too quiet. Too quiet. So what we actually did, oh God forgive us, we recorded sound levels of construction work, and we had to replay it in the background on a continuous loop on the CD. You couldn't make this stuff up. It wasn't about money. It was about power. It was about respect. My client was from a community and a culture that without respect you had nothing, and he was deeply wounded and angered and frustrated that nobody'd shown him respect. So 18 months, and that went on, and there was noise complaints all the time, people out, oh my God. And it went on and on and on. The job was finished in, I think, about 7 or 8 months. And the CD, so one of my guys had to go out every day and just potter around and put the CD on. And he'd put on headphones. He'd actually put on headphones and listen to music himself. Couldn't make this stuff up. absolutely mad stuff. And at the weekends he'd still go in and do it. Now, he did only live down in Ballybrack, so literally it was grand for him. And then I got a telephone call once that he invited all of his mates up for a party on a Friday night overlooking Dublin Bay. Jesus. So, okay, he was off. Nolly was off that one. He didn't get back to that job. But that's just all because of 5 pins. The utter chaos that can take place if you don't exponentially show respect to all stakeholders, including those